You're watching India Ahead at 9. Displeased leaders in the immediate neighborhood. World leaders referred to by Prime Minister Narendra Modi as friends, cancelling a pre-planned summit referring to Shinzo Abe of Japan over here. Neighbors calling off diplomats' visits. Headlines splashed across some of the most influential foreign publications with a big postcard image of security forces restricting students trying to barge through shut gates inside the university. Reports of police excesses on students in at least two of India's prestigious universities. And there's so much more which we will talk about through the course of this discussion. And will India be able to convince the world that this time too it is indeed an internal matter? Is this the biggest blow to India's image globally? That's what we're going to be talking about. Joining me right now is Michael Kugelman, Deputy Director at Asia Program and South Asia Senior Associate at the Wilson Center. His expertise lies in India's neighborhood, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, and of course, India. I also have with me on the show, and let me welcome Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee, a former diplomat, active commentator in international affairs. She was Ambassador of India to the Netherlands and worked as India's permanent mission to the United Nations and served as the Chief of Staff at the United Nations, to the United Nations Human Rights Commissioner. Welcome, Ambassador Mukherjee. Dr. Sreeram Chaulia, Professor and Dean at the Jindal School of International Affairs, Executive Director of the Center for Global Governance and Policy as well. Thank you both very much. Ambassador Mukherjee mentioned at certain political parties, Dr. Chaulia, who are backing protests at Indian consulates, embassies abroad. But you also have students of Harvard, Oxford, Yale. You've got students who are standing up for what we saw on the campus of Jamia as well as Aligarh Muslim University. So in that sense, they are also expressing solidarity. How are you looking at how the world is looking at what's happening in India? As Michael was pointing out that, it may be the beginning of a big political change as far as India's political landscape and the way the world perceives it as a secular democracy that is concerned.
No, Sana, I think we should not fall for momentary, judgments of whether our image has collapsed or is declining. Because, these opponents belong to certain ideological camps. I mean, they are left liberals, most of them, including in the Western world. And I think they have preconceived notions about India under Narendra Modi. And they have been attacking us since 2014, saying that, majoritarianism is running amok and minorities are unsafe and intolerance is increasing. They have some allies within India, English-speaking liberal elites, some of whom share the same ideology. And together they are trying to spread this. So when you mention Yale or Harvard or Washington
Dr.
Post
Chaulia,
or New York Times.
Just hang on, Dr. Chaulia. I get what you're trying to say, and you're pinning the blame on a certain set of people. But here's a respected voice in, a former diplomat, S.D. Muni. He wrote today that CAA has communalized India's neighborhood first policy. No rhetorical assurances will be accepted by neighbors. India's profile as a secular, plural and inclusive democracy also has been given a severe thrashing by the CAA. How would you react to this? Because this has mainly become about all the religions on one side and Muslims on the other side. And here what we're risking are the years of work and the money that we've put in Bangladesh as well as Afghanistan through all of these years.
I don't agree with SD Muni on this point, Sana, because look, when we are saying that Hindus, Sikhs, Parsis and Christians are facing persecution in these neighboring countries, we are not saying that the regimes are responsible for it. In fact, neither Sheikh Hasina nor Ashraf Ghani's governments are engaged in state persecution of religious minorities in these countries. What we are saying is there are, jihadist groups and as well as hardline Islamist groups which have been targeting minorities in these countries and forcing them to convert to Islam, or even, assassinations, and so on, and some unmentionable things that have been happening to them. Their numbers are declining, as Ambassador Mukherjee mentioned. So I don't think the governments of Afghanistan or Bangladesh are per se upset with India because of this. If some meetings have been called off, it's because they have to also calculate the domestic political reaction, including these Islamist groups at home who will say that, we need to show the Indians that we are angry. So I don't think this is a permanent setback
Okay.
by any means. And rather, we are saying that we are willing to assist not only the minorities who are facing persecutions in these two countries, as well as in Pakistan, which is a totally different
Yes.
case.
Ambassador
But more
Mukherjee,
importantly, we
Dr.
are willing
Chaulia,
to counter.
you know
We are
what
willing
I've
to counter
heard right
these
now is
forces of
mostly what the
intolerance
Ministry
in
of
our
External.
neighborhood.
Dr. Chaulia, do you think that it's at some level India's diplomatic failure to not being able to control the internationalization as well at this point?
Well, Sana,
When it was prepared at the time of
we
370, it seems it's less prepared at this moment.
No, Sana, as I said, the Western left liberal establishment has always been opposed to Narendra Modi and India's rise under him. So I think it is very hard to turn them around. And in fact, the move against immigration and migrants is global, and it is being led by the so-called free world. Trump, Boris Johnson, who they just elected. These are the most far-right populist leaders the West has ever seen. They are in charge of those countries, and they are saying, fortress Britain, fortress America, we will not allow a single immigrant to enter our country. We, on the other hand, are opening our doors to persecuted refugees and saying welcome, and they have a problem with us. I mean, I see a serious contradiction. Is the Oxford Union debating the fact that potentially there could be fascism in Britain under Boris Johnson? Are the Western media talking about the potential takeover of their democracy and the collapse of the democracy under Donald Trump? You see, they do criticize their leaders. I'm admitting that. So do our media, like you are doing. Good, but they don't have really a right to point fingers at us. Right now, you see the West as a whole, Sana, they have lost their complete moral bearings. They have gone back into a shell. They're talking about national security, about America first or Britain first, and these kind of ideologies. If we adopt some measures that are good for our security, such as to, control this illegal immigration coming across the border, but at the same time, we are giving genuine refugees a chance to find shelter and asylum and a future in our country. It's a
But
sign
that is
that
the
we are
problem,
actually.
Dr. Chaulia. You know that the world is failing to understand why the distinction, why leave out Muslims?
Yeah.
If you want to give shelter to refugees, why stick to 3 countries? Why not open your borders for all religions, irrespective of religion, making religious as a basis of granting citizenship? It's what being questioned. And I go back again, Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee, how do you see this moving forward? Because this time it's not about just Dr. Chaulia, very quickly, if you have to wrap it up. How big a setback, if you think at all, is this to India's neighborhood first policy?
It's not a setback, Sana, but we must counter the info war that is being waged against India, especially from the West. I am more confident about Bangladesh and Afghanistan because we have been supporting their states and societies for a long time. We'll continue to do that. But as far as the Western venom goes, we do need to have our own world news narrative. And I'm proud of India Ahead, the way you are doing this. But see, end of the day, our private channels, state channels, we need a world news channel of our own, like Al Jazeera or CGTN of China. These are the means, the structural means by which we can counter this and have our own narrative in front of the global audiences. To some extent, you're right that we are facing criticism now, but to hit back, I think we need more institutional means, not just MEA statements and anodyne rebuttals from government sources. We need, articulate voices on television and in print and on the internet to counter this infowar and propaganda that's being waged against India.
Well, I hope, as you say, all is well in the neighborhood because, I tried reaching out to many diplomats in Dhaka, but none of them really agreed to speak on this matter. But let's see how things pan out. We're watching the developments very closely. Thank you so much, Ambassador Mukherjee and Dr. Chaulia, for joining me. That's it then. Taking a short break. I'll be right back.